It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. I have an amazing guest today, somebody I've truly had several conversations with and keep leaning in and wanting to get to know more. Nancy Giere, and Nancy, I know I just pronounced your name wrong, so you're going to come in and correct me on this. Nancy is a course creation expert, but she's more than that. That's one of the things Nancy does. Nancy is a true learning architect. She works with businesses of all sizes, from solopreneurs to Fortune 100 companies, turning their expertise into high-level profit courses, and does a variety of other things within her business model. She is creating engaging, fun, and interactive programs that most importantly get results. Nancy, you've had an amazing background in business. So I definitely want to talk to you about all the experience and expertise you bring to the table. But first, come in and please introduce yourself, because I know I messed up your last name.
No problem. It happens all the time. I'm Nancy Giere, and I'm based near San Francisco at this point in my life.
And I love that because you've done so many things and continuing to expand on your expertise. Can you share a little bit of your background? You've been a business owner for a long time, like
long
me.
Time. Yeah.
Long time like me. Like we had these conversations like, yeah, back in the day.
Yeah,
so
it's hard to believe.
Share a little bit of your journey, because I think it's
Sure.
fascinating.
I really just fell into training very early in my career, where my boss said, "Hey, will you do this?" And I said, "Sure." And I had no idea what I was doing, but it was all right.
And I give you kudos because when in doubt, say yes.
Yes,
because you're always going to learn.
Yeah, exactly. I went through and I put the program together, and I think it went okay. And then I had an opportunity in another job to work at a company that created all kinds of off-the-shelf, if you will, software training. So everybody there, like 40 of us, we all had to follow the same process, the same methodology. And I learned about this thing called instructional design. And I had the opportunity there to do the work, get regular feedback on my work from my manager and a quality assurance manager, and was going to graduate school at the same time. So it was really the perfect storm.
Quite the load.
Oh, man. And I had a 3-year-old. So I didn't know how the heck I did all of that, right? But it really grounded me in my profession. And then I went from there and I worked my way up in different corporate jobs, all the way up to being a director of training. So I've been there, done that, seen it all. Well, one of the roles that I had, the company didn't have sales for 2 quarters, and they laid off 25% of the workforce. Training and marketing, always the first to go, it seems. So there I was. And I thought, this is 1998. Give you an idea how long ago. I have no downside risk to try to start my own business. I'm not giving up a big paycheck. So
if
why
not now, when?
Why not? So I thought this is the time to try it, and it went along quite successfully, and was able to do work for prior employers, as well as at that time I lived in Milwaukee, and I bounced between the big players in town, Johnson Controls, Northwestern, and Harley Davidson. Worked on a huge initiative that was the energy efficiency program for the state, and built a whole training department from nothing for them, and went on from there, lived in different places, done different things on my own. To compress the time here, I got divorced in 2016 and was trying to decide where to live. And my daughter said, "Mom, it's obvious. You need to come to where I am in California."
There you go.
Okay, what do you do, right? The kids ask you, do it.
When a child asks you, "Will you come live near me?"
Yes.
If it's Timbuktu, you pack a
You're
bag.
going to do it. Because a lot of them just want to get away from you. But
exactly.
I moved here, and at that point I thought, it's going to be easier to just get a full-time job as I kind of worked through the healing from the divorce. So I took on a role as a training director for a SaaS company. So it was very
Okay.
interesting to learn all about technology, which is a lot of my trajectory has been. I work for so many different kinds of businesses that I know a lot. I know a little bit about a whole lot of different types of operations and procedures and the whole deal. So I went along and did that. And then they decided to shut down the office in San Francisco. So there I was again going, okay,
What's next?
universe is calling, time to go back on your own. And then enter this thing called the pandemic, where suddenly everybody's like flipped out. What do I do? How am I going to run my business? This is more like the solopreneur thought leader crowd. Like, okay, I think these guys could use some help because they want to move their content online, but they don't have a clue how to do it. So I was able to take the breadth of my corporate experience and what I learned from methodology and help that crowd. A lot of authors, speakers, coaches, they've got a great idea. They got a book. Well, how do I repackage it? How do I
take something I have?
Yes.
And selling
Right.
a book for, $7, $10, $15, or $20 that gets put on a shelf. How do I remarket this?
Yes.
And
yes.
actually make a bigger impact when I do that?
Exactly. And to look at from a holistic view, if you start adding more learning components, if you will, into your business, well, how does that change how you work with your clients? If you can take what you say over and over and over and over and over again, package it into a course, you can have people do the course, do module 1 before we talk. There's an assignment at the end. Then you can work deeper. So you can say, well, I used to talk to people for an hour. Well, now I only need a half an hour. I can potentially serve more people or have more time or have more freedom to do other things that I might want to do in my life, or both.
And now, knock on wood 1,000 times, we're on this other side of the pandemic and we're at a next evolution of business. And I know you have a ton of wonderful clients that sit in that piece of how you help them take their content to create courses to serve larger, masses. But you're also, one of the things that attracted me to you is when you call yourself a learning architect, because you've done so much in learning and development in a variety of ways that reaches clients, reaches most importantly, businesses and what they need at so many levels.
Well, it was one of the big takeaways from my time in, working with corporations is that I'd sit in the training department and somebody would come to me with a request for a course or a program. And oftentimes, really, they were trying to solve, when people see people aren't performing at work, they immediately think it's a training issue. A lot of times it's not. It's motivation, it's tools, it's processes. If you want people in a call center to take a certain number of calls, if the phone system has a limit on, how it works, how quickly it can cycle through, that's your ceiling, right? Or my favorite was salespeople, 2 different products. They were selling the heck out of one product and not the other. Well, they must not understand how that other product works. Well, we dug in and we found out they made more money selling one product over the other. So, hello.
The light bulb goes off.
So
the salespeople
like, okay.
go where what is most beneficial to them, right? And so it gives the company an opportunity to look at and reevaluate and create opportunity. Well, if you shift what else they can make money on and make good money on, and that product moves, right? Or is the product not moving? And I think that what you're saying is so important because companies don't always truly look, or they forget to look, or businesses are so busy doing what's next, they forget to evaluate what's going on. Right.
And or it's a kind of a knee-jerk reaction. Or I used to laugh about cocktail party initiative. Somebody would go to a party and they talk about a book or a new leadership model. Okay, we got to bring that in now, without really stopping and going, do we really need to?
Do we need this? Would this benefit our company? Would it benefit our people? Would it benefit our clients? What do we really need?
And that's, so I always try to, step back and look at the big picture, because I think you need to look at learning as it's one part of a business. And how does it fit in? How does it align with the goals? Whether you're just, a one-person shop or a huge company, how is this going to help you to get to where you want to go?
So what in being the amazing learner, the amazing evaluator, what do you see your business today and where it's going next? Because you've been in, one of the things I admire about you a lot, Nancy, is your expertise of seeing what's going on in the marketplace and being able to meet it on where it's going, not where it's been.
Yes. Well,
and by the way, I think you're brilliant with this.
Well, thank you.
I really huge kudos.
Well, there's two key trends that I'm seeing now, and the first one is, I think there was a lot of disappointment in people that have been creating courses because it was make money while you sleep. You're going to make $1 million. It's going to, all of this picture was painted.
Hype.
All this
yes,
hype.
100% agree.
There was one part that people didn't stop and look at, which is the size of their list and their reach to, in terms of who they're going to market to. So if you have a small list, it's a number, like anything, it's a numbers game. You're only going to get a certain number of people, percentage to sign up, to show up. And then when you make an offer at the end, then, it just, it's a funnel, right? It just keeps getting small, it gets narrower and narrower.
And I love that you're sharing this, because I was just in this discussion with somebody the other day, literally the other day.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what have you tracked a conversion rate for yourself before? What do you convert at in sales for your company? Is your conversion rate 15%, 20%, 30%, 50%, 70%? Because then you take your list size and you can look at your conversion rate.
Yes.
And say, gee, if I want to move 25 pieces of something, right? If our conversion rate is 25% and I want to move 25 pieces, I have to have 100 viable clients to close 25.
Right.
And somebody said, how do you figure out this math, Ivy? And I'm like, hello, right? This is part of, understanding.
Right.
And so I love that you're going here, because I think it's something that on the smaller business model, people miss. And honestly, sometimes on the larger business, the Fortune 500 businesses, they don't look at these things.
Yeah, because I think that for the smaller size, and I'm going to the other in a minute, is that the larger play is to look at, if I have some type of a course, how does that fit in with everything else that I'm doing? And it can be perceived as a bonus offering, which would allow you to sell your higher ticket. And it's probably easier to sell a few high ticket people than tremendous volume if you don't have the list. I saw somebody post something, it broke my heart. They spent something like $7,000 on Facebook ads and nobody showed up. Ouch.
It's ouch. And I think one of the things that is so smart, what you're saying, is see how these different things we do fit into a business model that serves the growth of our business.
Right.
That it's not like, I'll do this, or I'll do this, or I'll buy some Facebook ads. I'll create a course. I will write a book. I'm going to create, as somebody said to me, this was about a workshop, same kind of concept. I'm going to create a workshop. If I sell, 50 people into this workshop, I was like, okay, do you have 50 clients? Do you have 50 people you've already had business conversations with, who came to you interested in your services and did not buy, that would now buy the workshop? They're like, what? And I said, no, that's how we're going to,
Yeah.
So understand when you're doing different things within a business, how this fits into your overall business model and your
Right,
business plan.
right. Then the other kind of approach that I'm taking now is with businesses that larger size, but not like the Fortune 100, but smaller businesses, probably the $2 million to $10 million
I was just going to say
range.
probably under 10 million. So we're on the same.
Yeah.
Yep. So our minds are
And
aligned again.
there's a need to do both employee development for retention and also customer acquisition and retention. And you can do quite a bit of learning courses, right? And yet they may not be ready to have a full-time person at that C-suite level that can drive strategy and direction. So I'm starting to put together an offer. I've got the first draft is done of a fractional chief learning officer. So to help guide and direct what they need, being really strategic, really take a look at where they are, where they want to go, and how learning will or will not fit into what they're trying to accomplish, and guide that process. And then when they get to the point where they're ready to bring on somebody who's full-time, they can slide in, the infrastructure is built, everything is kind of set up, and now you just need somebody that can just implement. Because I think there's a difference between the strategy and the planning person and the implementer person.
Right, because we could find somebody within the organization in operations, et cetera, in an operations role to implement. And that is ideal for businesses in that 10 million and under place, because they're not necessarily at that point that they're ready to bring in a learning and development officer. Yet their people need learning and development. Yeah. And very often, sometimes what they're doing, it can even be marketed out there.
Yes.
I love that. And I have to say, one of the things I most admire about you and the conversations we've had is you are a long-standing businesswoman who understands business, meets the business market, and continues to learn and develop yourself and your own company along with your clients.
Yeah, you just have to keep looking for what's next. I think because there's always going to be changes. Now we're in the middle of, AI suddenly became on everybody's radar. It's been around for a long time, but now it's become widely accessible. So that's going to change how we work. It's not, I remember when the internet came on the scene, right? That was a huge change.
And it's interesting. I recently read something. I'm not going to quote it because I'll probably misquote it. So I'm just going to say I recently read something that had a quote by a high-level leader that said, the integration of AI right now is like the beginning of the internet. What do we do with it? How is this going to be an asset? We know it's here to stay.
Right.
And then how do we use it strategically and smartly? And this is our next leveling up learning curve.
Mm-hmm. And I think I saw, I think it's called Writer. I can't remember the exact name, but now there's where you can bring it in to your company and it just focuses on your content. So it can just look at everything that you've produced and you've created and use that as the baseline for creating more and kind of having the voice of the company. So it's kind of like which is sort of like, we have the internet and we have inside of companies, we have intranets. So exactly. It's like the two, that's kind of how it lines up to me. But it's going to be fascinating to see how we use it to work, how it's going to be used in K through 12 education, college education. How does it change? I think it's going to be this huge shift. And I think it's sort of funny when you read some things and it talks about how that certain AI, these large language models, they can hallucinate. Like, oh, great. I have a robot that's hallucinating.
I was going to say, we now have robots on LSD back from the 60s.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and it's, there was a story about some attorney somewhere, and they went out to ChatGPT or pick your model to build information for their case. And it turned out that a lot of the cases that it cited weren't real cases. I don't think it was like Law and Order episodes, who knows? And this is, I think, the part where this gets very interesting. If you have expertise, you need to look at what you're getting to be able to determine what's real, what's useful, and what's BS. If you don't know what you're doing, if you're going in as a way to get information where you don't have knowledge of the subject matter, I think that's a little bit risky right now. And hopefully that will improve over time.
I actually read that same thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? There was no fact checking?
No
there was
fact
no
checking.
cross-record. There was no associate. There was no clerk, legal clerk that did any fact checking. I mean, really? So I think, we are in the next evolution. I have to ask you this: out of your years of leading a business, out of your years of growing and developing, and I will always say, speaking for myself, I don't speak for others, or at least I try not to. Speaking for myself, leading a business over 30 years has pushed me to take an accelerated 30-year self-development course.
Yes.
And they didn't realize I signed up for back in my, as I turned 30. So what has surprised you in leading a company? And we're of a similar generation where we've done this both of this long period of time. What has surprised you, if anything, or is there anything surprising you today?
What's surprising me today is there are a lot of people that I've encountered in the last 2 years. They're over 60, and they all have great ideas that they want to get out and they want to share. And they have limited technical expertise. And just being able to use tools like Word, Excel, really has baffled them. Or you having to learn things like how do I operate on Zoom? I mean, the tools that we have available to us now can make us so productive, and yet I see a lot of people that are struggling with trying to figure out, how do I make all of this work? They want to be there and they want to play, but yet whatever their life experience has been, they're finding it hard to be inquisitive and solve their own problems. And really, I think there's a real market to help people of this generation to become comfortable with technology. I don't have the patience to do it myself. I can build the programs, but I don't have the patience for the hand-holding sometimes. And that's really surprised me, because I feel like I've always kept up with technology. I've always been an early adopter. Maybe that's just my personality to go, what's this and how does it work? And is this something that I want to pursue and be able to do? Or is this something that I'm going to outsource to other people to do? I've always wanted to know enough about how things work to be able to make those kinds of decisions, because a lot of it comes down to best use of time. And that's the other part, what I'm seeing with a lot of people that want to get in and use Zoom and create videos and do live streams, blah, 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 blah. But yet there's this, are you using your time in the best way possible? Or are you wasting time by not getting the right kind of help to guide you through getting it done, so that it's the quality that reflects your brand? And I think that's what surprised me about the rush of everybody pushing stuff online, was they forgot about they are their brand.
Right.
And if they show up and their lighting isn't good and their sound is terrible and they got a lot of junk behind their back, all of that, they don't seem to understand that, if you're going to have me in your bedroom, make your bed. Right.
I think that's brilliantly said. And the other thing, I agree with you, is no matter what, we are a brand.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes for small, medium, and large companies.
Yes.
Okay. So you could look at it in the Elon Musk versus Tesla.
Oh,
right. Richard Branson versus Virgin.
Yeah.
Right. Mark Cuban versus the Dallas.
Whatever they are.
With that basketball team.
That's it. The Mavericks, I think.
Mavericks. Right. We, no matter what, has big or small of our company, we are our brand. So no matter how or where we're showing up, we always have to be remembering we're showing up as our brand.
Yes.
If you're 100,000, if you're $1 million, if you're $500,000, right? If you're 500,000, if you're $1 billion company,
mm-hmm.
The leader of an organization is a representative of the brand of the company and their individual brand and how that aligns. Yeah. Nancy, you and I can talk for hours.
I know. This is wonderful.
One last tip before we close the show for our listeners of Her Success Story, for listeners who are expanding their learning, their deliverables, and their brand. And from the learning architect.
From the learning architect. Well, this learning architect has been learning a lot by looking at the entertainment industry and looking at how we're so accustomed to consuming content on screens. Pretty much everybody alive today is getting their content on a screen, whether it's a small phone or a giant TV. That's how we're getting our content. So what we want to think about when we're creating programs is what can we do to have a lot of transitions between scenes to hold people's attention instead of showing up as talking heads.
Touché. What could we do to hold people's attention
Just so
and
really
not show up as talking heads?
Exactly.
Nancy, thank you for joining me
welcome.
Today on Her Success Story.
This has been a lot of fun. Great way to start my day.
And listeners, this is the time in the show that I say the same thing every time. So for those avid listeners, I thank you and I appreciate you. And you know what to do. Take a moment and think about the conversation that Nancy and I had. By you tuning in, what did you take away? What was that aha moment? What was that point in today's conversation that meant the most to you? Write that down. You could do it on a piece of paper. You can do it on your phone. You could do it right here in the show notes. And then create an action for yourself of what is your action to take forward, because that's where impact really sits. So thank you for joining me here today at Her Success Story. And thank you, Nancy.
You're very welcome.
And stay tuned for more wonderful interviews coming your way. Till next time.